Hello and welcome back to the cockpit of the A-18 Hornet. I am continuing to work on the flight school for the F-18. It's going to be a campaign kind of thing that's going to have a bunch of different sections in it. Navigation, bombing, air-to-air, and then it's going to finish out with a lovely carrier operations thing. So we'll see how all of that goes. It's taking me quite a while to get these more and more complex missions put together, so they'll release when they release. The videos will release when they release. Still not sure what I'm going to do as far as how I'm going to push it out to the public. It's a lot of work, and I'm very tempted to put it on my Patreon and make it available for sale there. Thinking I might do that. Because, I mean, I've spent 4 or 5 straight days just on these 4 missions, and it takes a long time to do it. But anyways, you're not here to listen to me whine about how long this is taking. You're here to see what the next mission is. So this is going to be GPS data entry because you need to know how to do that to do precision guided bombing. So he's going to say all this stuff when we go in there anyway. So I guess we'll just jump into the lesson, follow along, and you will... I'm looking for feedback, so please feel free to leave comments.
Now that you know how to take off and land safely, we need to learn how to get where we're going in between. Most real-world missions will have preloaded waypoints to guide you, but for the remainder of this section of the course, we're going to practice our data entry skills by manually entering waypoints into the navigation system. This serves a twofold purpose. First, it forces us to become familiar with the data entry process and various GPS coordinate formats, and second, it gets us ready for the true purpose of GPS data entry, precision bombing. Of course, we're not quite ready to start dropping bombs just yet, so we'll have to settle for flying between waypoints. For this afternoon's flight, we're going to go visit the ground attack training range so you can become familiar with the area. We're obviously not going to get much accomplished cold and dark, so go ahead and get the aircraft started up and we'll learn how to enter waypoints.
Okay, and then I'm going to do a little time compression to save time for the video, because if you watch the cold start procedure, you've already seen all of this happen, so we're just waiting for the... Oh, I forgot to press right shift home. That would explain it. I'm like, why isn't anything showing up? Durr. I really need to put a highlight on the throttle if I can figure out how to do that. And then, okay, so as soon as you do that, go ahead and do the home, and then we do the FCS reset, the takeoff trim, we do the radar, the FLIR, arm the ejection seat, dispenser, ECM, RWR. Tack in. I just push through the buttons on these. If you have to enter frequencies, you can enter frequencies. But I've had to go through these processes so many times. I'm sick of typing things in. I'm just trying to hurry up and get through it. For testing purposes, I'm not trying to be accurate. I'm just trying to hurry up and get through it and verify that everything works the way it's supposed to. All right, so we got that. Okay, so before I continue, I am updating all of my start procedures. These highlights that you're getting is from the quick start practice, and you'll get all of these all the way through until you do the navigation qual, and then after that you're on your own. You gotta learn the process and figure it out. But I also have these set up so that the triggers for any of the talking or the mission advancement is going to be the parking brake. So if you press the parking brake early, he's going to start talking. So don't do that. Almost every startup procedure I've ever seen has the parking brake being the last part of the sequence. And I've made that as an unconditional advancement to start the mission because of reasons. It has to do with the mission editor, but reasons. So as soon as I press this, he should start talking. But I did it that way. Oh, well, yeah, that's the reason I did it. The reason I did it that way is so that if you decide to use an auto start procedure, that's also almost always going to have the start at the very least towards the end of the process. So that should clear out all the highlights and everything, and then you're done. So here we go.
Okay, let's get started with some data entry. I find that it's easiest to use the right MDI for data entry because all the buttons you'll use the most are located close together, but it's up to you. Do what you're most comfortable with. Also, you should be getting pretty familiar with the cockpit by this point, so I won't be hand-holding you with individual button presses anymore. You'll remember where everything is a lot better if you have to look for it yourself. In order to let me know that you've moved on to the next step, I'll ask you to press the IP push button in the top left of the UFC panel to signal me that you've completed the last instruction provided and I can move on to the next step. Let's test that out now by pressing the IP button.
It's ridiculous how long it took me how to figure out to make this functionality work.
Perfect. The first thing we need to do is get to the data page of the HSI. Go ahead and open up the HSI on one of the MDIs and then press the push button for data.
And then every step you press the IP button to trigger the next step.
Data page summary. This is where most of the work is going to be done today. As you can see, there are a set of coordinates already listed on the screen. This is the current location of the aircraft, which is listed as waypoint 0 by default. Although it isn't strictly required, we're going to go ahead and get into the habit of adding waypoints to sequence 1 prior to entering the actual coordinates. This way we won't forget to do it later, which would make coupling the autopilot to the navigation impossible. Let's start by pressing the SEQUFC push button, then on the UFC menu press the INS push button, enter a value of 1 on the number pad, then press the enter key.
You might have also noticed if you see my other videos that I've adjusted the narrator voice to sound like he's coming in over the radio. I think that's kind of cool.
Alright, now that we've added
I plan on going back and changing all of the previous missions to be that way.
Coordinates in. There are 4 types of coordinate systems we'll be learning today: lat long normal, lat long precise, lat long decimal, and finally MGRS. The first of these is the simplest, but also the least accurate. Lat long normal is great for general navigation waypoints that don't require pinpoint precision. They consist of a simple 6-digit number that provides latitude and longitude in values of degrees, minutes, and seconds. For example, our first waypoint is North 41 40 43 East 45 29 06 2,451 feet. The first letter of each line indicates the hemisphere of that 6-digit coordinate. We're in the north and east hemispheres, or northeast hemisphere. The first pair of numbers tells you what degree of latitude or longitude you're at, the next pair are the minutes, and the last pair are seconds. What does that mean to you in the cockpit? Not much, honestly, but that's how maps work. The last line is the elevation at those coordinates in feet, which isn't really required for navigation, but is critical when dropping ordnance for precision strikes, so we're going to get in the habit of entering that information every time we deal with GPS. The aircraft likely started in decimal mode, so we're going to have to switch that before entering the code. Press the A-C button to bring up the configuration menu, then if you see lat long decimal in the bottom right, press it so it changes to lat long seconds. Then go back to the waypoint screen. To enter the first waypoint, first make sure you're on the correct waypoint by pressing the up and down arrows to select waypoint 1, then press the UFC push button. Move over to the UFC menu and press the POSN button. To enter the coordinates, you first need to tell the UFC which hemisphere you're entering, and the 2, 4, 6, and 8 buttons have direction indicators on them that you press before entering the 6-digit coordinates. So to enter the first line, you press 2 for north, then type out 414053 and press the enter key.
I feel like the distortion radio effect makes this AI-generated voice sound a little bit more realistic. I don't know, maybe it's just me.
Now press 6 for east and enter the appropriate 6 digits for that coordinate, 452906, and press enter. Lastly, enter the elevation information by pressing the ELEV button, typing in the value provided, 2451, verifying that you're using the correct unit of measurement, feet, and pressing enter to store the waypoint. Not too complicated, but also not very useful for anything but navigation. If we're going to drop bombs using GPS, we're going to need something quite a bit more precise, and this is where the first of the precise modes comes in. To use this, we need to put the system in the correct mode by pressing the precise push button at the bottom of the display. As you can see, the simpler coordinates we were looking at a minute ago just got a bit more complex, but for a good reason. This allows us to get pinpoint accuracy by splitting up the normal coordinates, which cover a much larger area, into smaller chunks by using decimals. The process for entering these is exactly the same as before, except for one additional step, but before we can get to that we need to remember to add waypoint 2 as part of the sequence, so press SEQUFC INS 2, enter. Then be sure to advance the system to waypoint 2 with the up arrow. Once that's done, refer to the mission briefing to get the coordinates for waypoint 2, then go ahead and press the UFC button and enter the part of the north coordinate you know how to do, everything before the decimal point, and press enter.
So you go to the briefing, because I'm going to try to remember, I'm going to have to remember, because you're not going to be able to get anywhere without these. You'll enter in the second part, so we're actually on east 452906. So east, I already forgot the number. 452906. 45, wow, east, 45, east. Wow. I have to completely re-enter that. North 4140, we're in the second one. North 415210. So we're on waypoint 2, UFC position north. Crap, I've been doing this too many times. I got all the numbers all backwards in my head. 415210. 415210. Enter. Now we can find out.
All that's left now is the remaining decimal. For more precise modes like this, which include decimal space, the decimal values are entered on a separate screen from the main coordinates. So for this example, we typed in N415210 and pressed the enter key, which brought up the HDTH page. Simply type in 90 and press enter again to complete the entry. An easy way to remember this is to replace the enter with dot or decimal in your head while typing the coordinate out. The waypoint display should now show the full coordinate information for the first line, but still 0 for the second. Go ahead and type in the second coordinate the same way as you did the first, then be sure to add the elevation information in the correct unit of measurement.
Okay, and this kind of forces you to start paying attention in the lesson, because all of a sudden you have to start finding this information out for yourself. So we are going to go position, and then we go into the briefing, and now we know east 452311. East 45. Hey, come on. Why is this east? Why is it not coming up? I'm not sure what the deal is. East. Oh, you have to. Okay, that's kind of dumb. So north 415210. North 415210. 90. East 452311. 53. And then the elevation was 5408.
If you entered everything correctly, your readout should now be N4252 10.90 E4523 11.53 5,408 feet. If it isn't, give it another shot by repeating the steps and paying a little more attention to detail.
I'll try to remember to put a little notification in there that if you fail to enter it in before the UFC turns off, you have to start over, because I wasn't aware that that was a thing.
As before, let's add waypoint 3 to the sequence, then advance to waypoint 3 with the up arrow. Once that's done, switch back to the AC page and toggle back to lat long decimal so we can try that version. This works pretty much the same way, except that it's a bit shorter and has more digits behind the decimal. Be advised that any single number in what is supposed to be a pair of digits should be entered with a 0 before it, so in this case you should be typing in North 4206 and then enter. And as before, enter the decimal portion. This time it's 3 digits instead of just 2. Once that's done, repeat the process for the east coordinate, then enter the elevation as usual.
I have to go back and fix my text because I adjusted things Okay, so the east coordinate is 4505, and then 29. Wait, hold on. We did the first coordinate, so 436, and then we have to do the entire rest of the thing. So 436 for the decimal part here. 436, enter. East. 4505. 294. And then we have to enter the elevation information in 3202.
Okay, now for the weird one. MGRS uses a grid system to set coordinates, and it has a unique user interface to make it work. Get waypoint 4 set up as part of the sequence and advance to waypoint 4 so we can try this out. Press the UFC push button on the MDI, then press the grid option from the UFC menu. This will bring up a screen with, of all things, a big grid. At the center of this display will be grid where your aircraft is located. The page numbers at the top correspond with the first number in the MGRS coordinate, in this case 38. Our aircraft is already located on page 38, but you can navigate the various pages by using the cardinal direction push buttons to find the desired grid square. Since we're already on the right page, we don't need to do anything this time. Using the throttle control designator, either using the appropriate keybinds or the controls on your stick, move the cursor on the display until it's over the square, then press the TDC select button. Once you're back on the coordinate screen, type out the 10-digit coordinates provided and press enter.
And you go to the mission briefing. I'm trying to get you in the habit of either going to the mission briefing or just writing this, or getting this put down somewhere so that you don't have to bring this back up. But 87049 and 29312.
Your display should now read as follows. North 4148.9349, East 4450.6444, 38 TMM 87049293120, 0 feet. Go ahead and enter the elevation information as usual, and
so you go, you enter the feet.
This waypoint is finished.
And then you advance.
Almost ready to fly now. We need one more waypoint to get us back to the airfield, and you're going to enter that one in all by yourself. I will give you a few hints, though. How do we make this waypoint usable by the autopilot?
I gotta update this page.
Which waypoint are we entering? Is precision required for this format? Which lat-long setting on the AC page is required for this format?
Okay, so for this, you're expected to go back, look at this, recognize that this is lat long with seconds, and enter it appropriately because we just did it. So we're gonna go to the AC page, make sure we're in seconds, go back to the waypoint page. We're gonna add waypoint 5 to our sequence. We're gonna make sure we're on waypoint 5. Then we're going to go to the USFC, go to the position page. The first one's going to be north, and then we're going to enter our number in, 413814, 413814, dot, and that's how I think about it, 68. And then east, 450108, 450108, dot, 36. Then elevation, 1524. Enter.
Okay, hopefully you got that right. We'll find out if you make it back to the airfield without getting lost. Press the HSI push button to go back to the HSI, then be sure to box the waypoint button, set waypoint 1 as the active, and activate sequence 1 so you can use the autopilot. Once that's done, go ahead and taxi to the active runway and take off. After that, it's up to you to get yourself back to the airfield.
Okay, and then for this, this lesson has two parts to it, really. It's the entering the GPS coordinates so that you can learn how learn the various ways to enter GPS coordinates in, because the real reason you need to know that is because you need to be able to drop bombs, and you can't drop bombs if you don't know how to get to the GPS, how to enter the coordinates with the GPS, what the formats are, how to put that stuff in. So this is all this is going to force you to practice that, become very familiar with it, and all of that. And then the second part of this lesson is actually flying the waypoint that we put in to ensure that, you know, hey, it works, and to give you confidence that you're able to put in your own waypoints and it works and everything's fine. And then when you come back here, we practice a case 1 style recovery onto the airfield. So we're also the other landing gear. Also, the other point of it is to take us over to the training range that we're going to be dropping bombs on for the air-to-ground portion of the syllabus. So that's kind of the thought process so far. If you're not interested in watching the flight, because I am going to time compress through it so we're not sitting here for the whole thing, but if you're not interested in watching the entire flight, you can go ahead and duck out now. But if you want to see what the instruction for the Case 1 recovery is, stick around until we come in for our landing, because it kind of builds on the practice that we did before. So I'm going to time compress through all of this now. I wasn't thinking about actually doing it while I was talking. It's hard for me to do two things at the same time. So we get to 9,000 feet. We start leveling down. I mean, we won't be putting any limits on the players' decisions on how they're going to fly between now and then. I mean, ideally, they're going to be using the autopilot just because, you know, that's easier. But I gotta fix my trigger zone for this, because as soon as you get to the waypoint, it's supposed to start
Welcome to the training area. You're going to spend quite a few lessons over here practicing your air-to-ground skills, so take a look around and get familiar with the landscape. Waypoints 2 and 3 will take us straight over the primary range, then we'll head toward waypoint 4 to line up with the runway at Vaziani.
So waypoint 1 kind of gets you over to the eastern side of the range, and then basically this entire flat area over here, anytime we're going to do the bombing stuff in the second part of the syllabus, we'll put targets out over here, and then you'll have to go bomb them with the appropriate thing, and there'll be instructions and all that kind of stuff the first time you go through it, and it'll slowly put more of the decision making in your hands, and then you'll have to figure out what you need to do. And then the capstone for that will be some kind of mission where you're equipped with just enough bombs to get the mission done, and it's up to you to figure out how to do it. So that's the idea behind all of that. So
this marks the eastern boundary of the active range. We'll cross directly overhead and then turn south toward the airfield.
I wanted to have something that was relatively clear and flat, so that when we go in here and start doing start actually learning how to drop bombs on people, you're not having a bunch of trees and stuff blocking your view, and you can focus on the technique of it rather than fighting with, oh man, I can't see anything. So that's the idea behind that. So let's time compress through this part a little bit until we get down to a couple miles. This is continuing to cross. Yeah, I need to figure out my
and that's the range. Bet you're looking forward to dropping some ordnance. While we head back to the airfield, let's talk about the full Case 1 recovery procedure. What we practiced this morning was the bolter/wave-off procedure for landing on the carrier, which is actually part of the tail end of the Case 1 recovery when a pilot doesn't make the landing. We did it that way because it allowed you to practice the hardest part of the pattern over and over without having to leave the airfield area and come back. While you'll likely be doing wave-offs and bolters a lot once we do it for real, we need to learn the proper procedure to execute a carrier landing. For the remainder of this course, forget that you ever heard the words straight-in landing. The last part of an approach to the carrier requires you to perform an initial pass to the right of the ship to confirm the deck isn't fouled before conducting your braking turn to the left and entering the downwind. We're going to simulate that for every landing from now on, so that it's second nature by the time we relocate to the Stennis for carrier quals. Once we reach waypoint 4 and begin our descent toward the runway, we'll do a quick rundown of the procedure, and you'll give it a shot as we go in for the landing.
Okay. Then you just head out to waypoint 4, which lines you up with the runway. Waypoint 5 takes you to the runway.
Very different from what you practiced this morning.
Sorry.
As you approach the airfield, slow and maintain 350 knots. Descend to 800 feet AGL and bring yourself in far enough to the right of the runway that you can look down and verify that it's clear. After that, it's pretty much the same as what you did earlier, except you'll allow yourself to descend a bit during the turn down to 600 feet. Get us on the ground and back to parking spot 1, then shut down the aircraft and we'll be done for the day.
Okay, so this part here is a modified version of the practice that you would have done in the lesson before this one. So the story is I've adjusted the videos that you've seen so far. I've adjusted the story a little bit. Mission 1 is actually going to be an evening, a sunset flight. And the story is that you got here, but the day you got here, there was a training accident over here at Vaziani. They had to fix things up, and you weren't able to fly in at the time. So you do an evening flight as the sun is setting to get over here. You come over, you park the jet, and then you wait till the next day. First thing, or not first thing, but 0800 in the morning. You have a morning mission where you do the practice, right? So that would be today. You do the practice of going around and doing the loop over and over again to get the hard part of the carrier landing down.
Altitude.
And now this mission here is the afternoon flight following that. So that's why I keep saying earlier in the day with the narrator there. So the coming back over here, there's a modified version of that. All of the trigger zones that were there before are still there from the last mission. I've just adjusted them to be appropriate for more of a case 3 landing kind of thing, and kind of assuming that you know what you're doing because you should have practiced this enough to not need babying. But the one thing I want to show is that I did put a trigger zone over here on top of the runway so that if you space out and you go over the runway, you're going to get a warning that said, hey dude, you're supposed to go over to the right. So I want to show that now.
At this point, you should have been at 800 feet and far enough to the right of the runway to look down and verify that it isn't fouled. It's a little difficult to see anything directly below your aircraft. Try to remember that next time. Okay, you're about a mile out, so execute your brake turn, but this time allow the velocity vector to slip just below the horizon so you can enter the downwind at about 600 foot AGL. Remember that you're looking to start at around 3G and slowly level out at a heading of... You should be about halfway through your turn at this point. Don't forget to lower your flaps and landing gear once your airspeed is below 250 knots. Level out at a heading of 310 and focus on the E bracket.
I feel like something's wrong here. Where am I? Did I? Okay. Not sure what happened there. Ignore my incompetence.
Looking good. You're within the downwind corridor, so focus on aligning your velocity vector with your E bracket, keeping your altitude at about 600 foot AGL, and maintaining a heading of 310.
Let me try to fix myself. Sorry, I've been working on this for so long, and I'm kind of spacing out at this point. And I'm also kind of confused because my altimeter is not switching to radar mode. It's really distracting me because I'm not able to get accurate information. Like, I have it down there on radar. I don't understand why it won't switch. I don't know if I did something or what the deal is, but it's kind of irritating.
Okay, begin your turn toward the runway when you're ready. Remember to add power and wait at least 90 degrees before looking at the runway.
So you get some simplified instructions on this pass through on this pass through, because we're simulating the stuff you've already done. You should already know what you're doing here. And now you're just practicing coming in from a different location.
Start visually lining up with the runway and get the velocity vector and E bracket on the numbers.
So if I had my head tracking on, I would do that.
Remember that you have to keep that throttle moving to stay ahead of the aircraft.
But I don't have my head tracking turned on because this is more of a demonstration of, hey, this is what the mission's supposed to be, so I can get feedback from, more experienced pilots. I can make the missions. I'm not an expert freaking Hornet pilot or anything. I'm learning myself. One of the reasons I'm making this is because there's just not the kind of...
Good trap. Exit the runway when able.
There's not the kind of... I want this level of instruction, and nobody's sat down to make it. So, like, there's YouTube videos for it, but there's nothing out there that allows you the ability to practice this, to, you know, go into these missions. And not just, like, I'm sure that people have made missions or have done individual things, but there's nothing comprehensive out there that's just a full training course that takes you from, hey, I don't know anything about this plane, to, yeah, I can go out there and blow some stuff up. Let's go. So I'm hoping that as I, you know... nope. Damn it.
Head back to parking spot 1 and shut down the aircraft.
I got lucky. So I'm hoping that as I make these missions and I learn and I watch tutorials, and then I have to make missions based on those tutorials and then create those tutorials, and I practice the tutorials, I become a better pilot having made these things, and then this becomes something that, you know, a lot of people enjoy, and it helps you become better. So that's the idea. The rest of this is just you go back. Every mission I have, I'm trying to be as realistic as possible. Obviously, I'm not being realistic by time dilating right now, but I'm trying to be as realistic as possible. You'll start off from parking spot 1 over here, and then you're expected to taxi back to parking spot 1 over here, and then shut down. And once you're shut down, that's the end of the mission. So that's the idea. Obviously, I'm trying to rush through it for a YouTube video, but that's the idea. So you get over here, you do a shutdown, and then I'm going to do the auto shutdown that I have, so that you can see that you can use the code, because the shutdown for the requirement for this is that you turn the battery off. Once you turn the battery off, that's a hard stop for the mission. If you're in the spot, only if you're in the spot. If you turn your battery off anywhere else, you're just gonna shut your battery off. But if you're in the spot on the ground, you turn the battery off, that's gonna indicate to the system that the mission is over.
Let's go get some dinner, and then we have a night flight to complete.
Okay, so that's mission number 4. It's in the afternoon on the first day of training. And then, like I said, like he just said, there's going to be a night flight. So the idea I have for the next mission is it's going to be a night flight, so you can't see the ground, and we're going to be working on TACAN navigation. I think I might do automatic direction finding if I can find the information on how that works. And I don't know that that's necessarily something you need to know, but, you know, at least you'll have that in your back pocket. And ILS practice, because if it's dark, it's going to be a lot harder to see where you're going, and you need to know how to use the ILS for a case 3 recovery, I do believe. So it's kind of important to know. Anyways, again, hopefully you made it all the way through the lesson with me. Be sure to leave some feedback in the comments section, like the video if you like what you're seeing so far. Motivation helps a lot. And, you know, I'd like to get a few more. I'm not sure what else I'm going to include in this, you know, navigation section of the syllabus. Please feel free to leave ideas for that as well. I want to make sure I'm as comprehensive as possible and that we're progressing in a way that makes sense. I think aerial refueling will probably be included in this section but I'm not sure. That's a fairly advanced technique, and I might wait for the air-to-air portion for that, because you need to be able to have some precise stuff. I don't know. Leave some feedback in the comments. Discussion is welcome. I want to make something that makes sense and isn't just kind of thrown together half-assed. So let me know. Again, thank you very much for your time, and I will see you for the next one.